My husband cheated with his college crush, so I kissed my best friend. On Labor Day, my 8-year-old said, "Mom, why does Dad have Alyssa on his phone?" She was standing in the doorway of our bedroom in her pajamas, holding my husband's phone like it was sticky. Her face pinched up in that serious kid way, like she knew it was wrong without knowing the rule. I didn't shout. I didn't yank the phone. I didn't call for my husband. I made one small change. I opened a note on my phone called Timeline, and I typed her sentence exactly as she said it, because I had a feeling I was about to need dates, not tears. My name is Kendra. I'm 32. We live in a Charlotte suburb where the lawns are perfect and everybody pretends they're not stressed. My husband is Miles. He's 34. We've been married 9 years. Our daughter is Harper, 8, the kind of kid who asks questions like she's collecting evidence for a school project. And Alyssa. Alyssa was a name I recognized so fast my stomach dropped before my brain caught up. Miles had mentioned her before, years ago, casually, like an old fun fact. College crush, he'd said once, smiling like it was harmless. Nothing happened. We were just friends. It was one of those details you file away because you assume it doesn't matter. But now there was a heart next to her name on my husband's lock screen. And that's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't start as a scream. It starts as a tiny symbol that makes your body go cold. I took the phone from Harper gently, like I was taking a sharp object. "Thanks for bringing it to me," I said. "Go brush your teeth, okay?" Harper nodded and walked away, but she looked back like she wanted to protect me from whatever I'd just learned. I stood there for a moment holding Miles's phone, trying to breathe like a normal person. The screen lit up again with a notification. Text preview, 7:14 a.m. Can't stop thinking about last night. No name because the phone was locked. But I already knew. I didn't unlock it. I didn't try a code. I didn't do anything that would turn this into a fight about privacy instead of truth. Instead, I set the phone down exactly where Harper had found it, on top of Miles's gym bag. Then I added to my note. Labor Day, Harper saw Alyssa contact. Labor Day, notification preview. Can't stop thinking about last night. And I waited. Miles came out of the bathroom whistling, towel around his waist, relaxed like the world wasn't shifting under my feet. "Morning," he said, and kissed my forehead. I kissed him back, which felt like my mouth was doing something my brain didn't approve of. He glanced at his phone and picked it up fast. Too fast. Then he smiled at the screen in a way that made my chest tighten. A private smile. Not for me. I kept my voice calm on purpose. "Who's Alyssa?" I asked. He didn't flinch, but he did something subtle that I wouldn't have noticed if my gut wasn't already screaming. He turned the phone slightly away. "Oh," he said lightly, "just someone from college. We're planning the alumni weekend stuff." Alumni weekend. Right. Because 2 weeks earlier, Miles had announced almost casually that his university was doing a big fall alumni thing. Football game, tailgate, the whole deal, he'd said. A bunch of people are going. He made it sound like a work conference. He also made it sound optional. And then, over the next few days, it became important. He bought a new button-down. He got a haircut on a Tuesday. He started going to the gym at weird hours. He talked about running into old friends with a smile that lasted too long. I told myself it was fine. People like nostalgia. People like attention. But my gut kept replaying Harper's sentence. Why does Dad have Alyssa Hart? That night, after Harper went to bed, I asked again. Not loud, not dramatic. Just steady. "Miles," I said, "why is there a heart next to Alyssa's name?" He laughed once, like it was cute that I cared. "It's just a joke," he said. "She put it there years ago and it stuck. It's nothing." Then he added a little too quickly. "You're overthinking." Overthinking is what liars call intuition. I didn't say that out loud. I said, "Okay." Then I did another small change. I turned on bank notifications for our shared card. Not because I wanted to police him. Because if he was telling the truth, the receipts would match the story. And if he wasn't, they wouldn't. 2 days later, the first alert hit. Bank alert, 9:58 p.m. Bistro 44, $126.20. Miles had told me he was staying late at the office for a quarterly planning meeting. "Pizza and spreadsheets," he'd said. Bistro 44 was not pizza and spreadsheets. I looked at the alert and felt my hands go numb. Then I opened Timeline and typed, Wednesday, late meeting, charge at Bistro 44, $126.20. When Miles came home, he smelled like cologne he didn't wear for me anymore. I asked, "How was the meeting?" He smiled, easy. "Long," he said, "same old." Then he kissed Harper goodnight with the patience of a man who wanted to look like a good dad. And I hated that my brain noticed that too. Because when you start tracking reality, everything becomes data. The next day, I got an email. Email subject, reservation confirmation, the Westin Charlotte. At first, I thought it was spam. Then I saw the name in the body. Guest. Miles R. My heart dropped so hard I had to sit down. The reservation was for the weekend of the alumni event. 1 room, 2 nights. And when I checked our calendar, the weekend was blank. No trip. No, out of town. Nothing. He hadn't told me he was staying anywhere. He had told me he might crash at Chris's if it got late, like it was casual. So why did my husband have a hotel confirmation in his email? And why was he hiding it like I didn't exist? That night, I didn't confront him. I did something calmer and honestly scarier. I waited for him to fall asleep. Then I listened to the rhythm of his breathing until I was sure he was out. And I whispered to myself, don't panic, build the timeline. Because I could feel it. Whatever this was, it wasn't just flirting. It was planned. The next morning, I acted normal. Not because I was okay. Because I needed to protect Harper from becoming the witness to my worst day. I packed her lunch, signed her homework sheet, smiled at her little jokes, and drove her to school. The whole time, my brain kept replaying one detail. The Weston confirmation. 1 room, 2 nights. When I got home, I didn't go digging through drawers or hunting through Miles's stuff. I went to the one place nobody thinks of as snooping. The family computer. Because Miles had logged into our shared email once to print concert tickets, and he never fully logged out. I know how that sounds. But I also know this. If someone is hiding a life from you, you don't get the truth by asking politely. You get it by matching stories to facts. I opened the email search bar and typed one word. Alyssa. And there it was, a chain that made my throat tighten. Email subject, reunion weekend plan. It wasn't romantic, not on paper. It was logistics. But the tone was familiar. Like 2 people who used to know each other's insides. Then I saw the detail that turned my stomach. A calendar invite. Calendar invite. Drinks, 9 p.m., hotel lobby bar. Location, the Westin Charlotte. Guests, Miles R., Alyssa B. Not a group invite. Not a class of 2014 thing. 2 names. 2 people. I took a photo of the screen with my phone, then I emailed it to myself. I titled the email one word. Receipts. Then I opened Timeline and wrote the date, time, and invite details. I wish I could tell you my next move was graceful. It wasn't. I paced my kitchen like I was trying to wear a hole in the tile. Then my phone buzzed with another bank alert. Bank alert, 1:07 p.m., flower bar, $48. Miles had never bought me flowers randomly. Not in years. I stared at the alert and thought, who are those for? And as if the universe wanted to be cruel, Harper's school sent a notification. School app. Reminder, family night this Friday, 6 p.m. Friday, the same weekend as the hotel. So my husband had made plans for a lobby bar date. On the weekend he was supposed to be at a school event. When Miles got home, I tested him. Not with accusations. With one calm question. Are you coming to family night on Friday? I asked. Miles didn't hesitate. Of course, he said, wouldn't miss it. Then he looked down at his phone, and I saw his thumb move like he was answering someone. I waited. I said, because the school sent a reminder and I just wanted to confirm. Miles smiled at me, too smooth. Yeah, he said, I'm in. So I nodded. And I did the quietest, hardest thing. I let him leave. Because I wanted to see how far he'd take it. 2 days later, he took it far. Friday afternoon, he texted me. Text, 3:22 p.m., Miles. Bad news, they moved a client call. I'll be late to family night, start without me. I stared at the screen and felt something in me go still. Not rage. Clarity. Because I already knew where he was going. He wasn't going to a call. He was going to a lobby bar. With his college crush. I took Harper to family night by myself. I smiled at her teacher. I clapped while Harper sang with her class. I took photos like everything was normal. And while I sat in a plastic chair in the cafeteria, my phone buzzed again. Bank alert, 7:48 p.m., Westin Charlotte, $312.66. There it was. Not Chris's couch. Not client call. Hotel. I didn't cry in the cafeteria. I refused to give the world that moment. I waited until Harper was asleep, then I sat on the edge of my bed and opened the co-parenting style app we use for Harper's school stuff, the one that stores everything cleanly. And I wrote myself a message in the notes. Do not confront until you have the full timeline. Because I know how these things go. If you confront with one receipt, they explain it away. If you confront with a pattern, they can't. At 11:19 p.m., Miles walked in. He was smiling, flushed, like he'd had a great night. He kissed me on the cheek like it was normal. I could smell the hotel soap on his hands. Family night was great, I said calmly. Miles nodded, not really listening. Good, he said. Sorry I missed it. I watched him toss his keys into the bowl by the door. Then he said casual, I'm exhausted, babe, long day. And I said, yeah, long day. He went to bed like a man who believed he'd gotten away with it. And I stayed awake staring at the ceiling, thinking about one thing. If he could lie to Harper and me on the same night, what else had he already rewritten? The next morning, I got the answer. Because Alyssa posted a story. Not tagged. Not public. But Miles's phone lit up with a notification preview while it was on the counter. Preview. Last night was everything. And right under it, a little thumbnail image. A hotel lobby mirror selfie. 2 glasses. 2 shadows. One of them wearing a watch I had bought my husband. I didn't confront him immediately. I know that sounds unbelievable. But after you see something like that, your mind goes into a survival mode that isn't dramatic. It's practical. You start thinking in steps. Harper's schedule. Money. Housing. How to speak without shaking. So I did the first thing I could do without making a scene. I called my best friend Danny. Danny and I have been friends since we were 19. She's the kind of person who doesn't gasp and scream when you tell her bad news. She gets quiet, then she gets useful. When she answered, I said, "Can you come over today just for an hour?" Danny heard it in my voice. "Yeah," she said, "I'm on my way." While I waited, I opened Timeline and wrote down what I'd seen, as clean as possible. West in charge. Lobby bar invite. Story preview. Last night was everything. Watch visible in photo. Then I did something I didn't expect to do. I checked Miles's location sharing. We'd shared locations for years, mostly for practical stuff, traffic, pickups, safety. It wasn't about trust. It was about convenience. Except now, the setting was off. Miles had turned it off. Not phone died. Not glitch. Off. And I remember thinking, that right there is the confession. You don't turn off location sharing unless you don't want to be found. Danny arrived with iced coffee and that look on her face that says, "I'm ready." I told her everything in order like I was giving a report. She didn't interrupt. When I finished, she said one sentence. "Okay, what do you want your life to look like in a month?" I stared at her. Because no one had asked me that yet, not even me. I said, "I want Harper to be okay." Danny nodded. "Then we move like adults, not like pain." That line mattered. Because pain wants you to do something that makes you lose your footing. Danny helped me make a plan for the next 48 hours. 1. Don't confront in front of Harper. 2. Get a consult with a family attorney. 3. Copy important documents. Bank statements. Insurance. Mortgage. 4. Keep the timeline clean. No dramatic texts, no threats. And then, while Danny was still there, Miles walked into the kitchen like nothing had happened. He froze when he saw her. "Hey," he said, too cheerful. "Danny." Danny smiled politely, calm as glass. "Hey, Miles." Miles kissed Harper's forehead and asked about her Saturday plans like he wasn't living a secret life. And I hated how normal he looked. Because the hardest part of betrayal isn't the shock. It's the way the betrayer keeps asking you to play your old role. That night, after Harper went to bed, I said, "We need to talk." Miles sat at the table and opened his hands like he was ready to be reasonable. "Okay," he said. "What's up?" I kept my voice steady. "I saw the hotel confirmation," I said. "I saw the calendar invite. I saw the story preview." Miles blinked once, then leaned back. "You went through my email," he said. And there it was, the pivot. Not sorry. Offended. I didn't take the bait. "I'm not doing the privacy argument," I said. "Were you with Alyssa?" Miles exhaled like he was annoyed. "It was alumni weekend," he said. "People get drinks. You're turning it into something." I said, "Did you stay at the Westin?" He hesitated for a fraction of a second, then nodded. "Yeah," he said. "Because it was easier." I asked, "In a room, alone." Miles's jaw tightened. He didn't say no. He said, "Nothing happened the way you're imagining." That sentence is the oldest sentence in the book. Nothing happened the way you're imagining. It's vague enough to sound reassuring, but slippery enough to avoid accountability. I said, "Then say it clearly. Did you cross a line?" Miles looked at the table. Then he said quietly, "I messed up." My throat tightened. There it was. Not a denial. A confession in a soft voice. I asked, "How long?" Miles rubbed his face. "It's not like that," he said. "It was a rekindling, a stupid one. Rekindling. Like our marriage was a candle he'd set down and forgotten." I stood up, not dramatic, just done. "I'm sleeping in Harper's room tonight," I said. Miles's head snapped up. "Kendra, don't do that. Don't make this a thing." I turned and looked at him. "It's already a thing," I said. "You just wanted it to be a quiet one." I walked out before he could say more. Because I could feel myself getting close to yelling, and I didn't want Harper to wake up to a new version of her mother. The next day, Miles tried to be charming. He made pancakes. He cleaned the kitchen. He offered to take Harper to the park. He texted me from the driveway like we were coworkers. Text, 10:02 a.m. "Can we talk? I want to fix this." Fix this. I didn't respond. I went to Danny's house instead, with Harper dropped at my mom's. Danny opened the door and pulled me into a hug so tight I finally let myself shake. We sat on her back porch with 2 mugs of tea, the air warm, the neighborhood quiet. Danny said, "You're allowed to be furious." I whispered, "I feel stupid." Danny shook her head. "You feel betrayed." And then she said something I didn't expect. "You've been lonely in your own marriage for a while," she said. This just made it undeniable. I stared at my hands. Because she wasn't wrong. I hadn't felt chosen in a long time. And in that moment, with the porch light soft and the world quiet, Danny reached over and wiped a tear off my cheek with her thumb. It was a small gesture. Comfort. But my nervous system, starving for steadiness, misread it. I leaned in, and I kissed my best friend. It was brief. A second. 2 seconds. Enough to be real. Enough to be irreversible. I pulled back immediately, my heart pounding like I'd done something dangerous. Danny's eyes went wide, then soft. She didn't move toward me. She didn't take advantage. She just said quietly, "Hey, you're not okay right now." And that sentence hit harder than the kiss. Because she was right. I wasn't in love. I was in shock. And I had just crossed a line I didn't even want to cross. Then Danny's phone buzzed on the table. A notification from her doorbell camera. Motion detected. Front porch. And the screenshot showed a figure standing at her gate. Miles. For a second I couldn't breathe. Danny turned the phone toward me. The image was grainy, but I knew the posture. Miles standing there like he belonged. Like he had the right to show up at my best friend's house. Danny stood up immediately. She didn't look panicked, she looked protective. "I'm going to handle the door," she said. I grabbed her wrist. "No," I whispered. "I will." Because whatever mess I'd just made, it was still my marriage on fire, and I wasn't going to hide behind my friend. I walked to the front door and opened it. Miles's face changed the second he saw me. Not relief. Suspicion. He looked past me into Danny's house, like his brain was searching for the shape of a story he could use. "You're here," he said slowly. I kept my voice calm. "Yes," I said. "I told you I needed space." Miles's eyes flicked to Danny standing behind me, a few steps back, arms crossed. He smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. "Interesting," he said. I said, "Don't." Miles leaned forward a little. "Don't what? Don't notice that you ran straight to her." I felt heat rise in my face. The kiss flashed through my head like a warning light. Danny didn't speak. She just stood there, steady, which somehow made me feel worse and safer at the same time. Miles said, "So this is what it is." I stared at him. "This," I said, "is you trying to make yourself the victim." Miles's jaw tightened. "I made a mistake," he said. "You're making a choice." That sentence almost worked. It almost made me doubt myself. Then I remembered the Westin charge. The lobby bar invite. The location sharing turned off. The flower purchase. And my daughter's voice asking about a heart emoji. I said, very calmly, "Your mistake had a reservation number." Miles's face twitched. He didn't answer that. He said, "Come home, we'll talk." I shook my head. "Not here, not now." Miles's voice sharpened. "Then, where are you going, Kendra?" "Danny's." I held his gaze. "I'm going to an attorney consult on Tuesday," I said. "And I'm going to do what you should have done, tell the truth to my face before you told it to someone else." Miles went still. That was the first time I'd seen fear in him. Not heartbreak. Fear of consequences. He took a breath and softened his voice. "Please," he said, "don't do that. Think about Harper." I nodded once. "I am. That's why I'm doing it." I closed the door gently. My hands were shaking. Danny followed me back to the porch and sat down like she knew I needed the air. Neither of us spoke for a full minute. Then I said, "I'm sorry." Danny didn't ask what I meant. She just nodded. I said, "That kiss, it wasn't fair." Danny's voice stayed calm. "You're in survival mode." "I still did it," I said. Danny looked at me with the kind of honesty that doesn't punish you. "Then you own it," she said. "And you don't use it as your excuse to stay with someone who betrayed you." That line broke something open in me. Because she was right. My brain wanted to cling to the kiss as a way to level the playing field. To say, we both crossed lines, so nobody gets to leave. But that's not how self-respect works. Self-respect doesn't keep score. It makes decisions. On Tuesday, I met with a family attorney. Her office smelled like printer paper and peppermint gum. She was direct, but not cold. She said, "If you're considering separation, gather documents. Don't move money around. Don't provoke. And keep Harper out of it." I nodded and slid my phone across the desk. Timeline. She scanned it and said, "This is good. Dates? Facts? Minimal emotion." Then she looked up. "Do you have proof of the affair?" she asked. I didn't dramatize. I said, "I have hotel charges, calendar invite, and a confession that he messed up. I don't have photos of anything physical." The attorney nodded. That's often enough for negotiating reality, even if it isn't for proving every detail. That day, I opened a new bank account in my name only. Not to punish Miles. To protect Harper's stability. I also changed my passwords. Every account. Streaming, email, bank, school portal. Because one thing I learned quickly is that betrayal makes people unpredictable. That night, Miles sat across from me at the kitchen table and tried a different approach. He didn't deny. He didn't blame my overthinking. He went for pity. I was nostalgic, he said. Alyssa made me feel like I was 20 again. I stared at him. And I said, so you risked Harper's family for a feeling. Miles's eyes got wet. I didn't mean to, he whispered. I said, but you did. Then he did what I expected him to do. He tried to drag Danny into it. He said, and you went to her. You ran to her. What happened over there? My heart hammered. This was the moment where my messy choice could become his shield. And I refused to let that happen. I said calm, Danny is my friend, and she's not part of this conversation. Miles leaned forward. Did you cheat on me, Kendra? I held his gaze. I said, I kissed her. Miles went still, like he'd won something. His face changed into this sharp little look of relief. Aha, he said, so you're not innocent. I felt my stomach turn. Not because he was wrong that I'd crossed a line, but because he was using it like a coupon, like it reduced the price of what he'd done. I said, I'm not claiming innocence. I'm claiming reality. Miles scoffed. Reality is you kissed your best friend. I nodded. Yes. And reality is you built a secret weekend. He opened his mouth. I cut in gently. And I'm not proud of my moment, but I'm not letting you turn it into your permission slip. Miles stared at me for a long time. Then he said, so what now? I said, now we separate like adults. And the next morning, when Harper asked why Dad was sleeping in the guest room, I didn't lie. I kept it kid safe. I said, Mom and Dad are having grown-up problems and we're working them out. You're safe. You're loved. None of this is your fault. Harper nodded, but her eyes searched mine like she was trying to measure the truth. That's when I knew the next phase wasn't about proving Miles wrong. It was about proving to Harper that stability still existed. Separation is quieter than people think. It's not one big explosion. It's 100 small adjustments that feel like swallowing rocks. Miles moved into an apartment 10 minutes away. Close enough for Harper's school commute. Far enough that I could breathe. We set a temporary schedule that made sense for Harper's routines. We agreed, in writing, to keep conversations about the marriage away from her. And for the first time in a long time, our house got calmer. Not happier. Calmer. Which told me a truth I didn't want. We had been living in tension for a while. The betrayal just gave it a name. Miles tried to make himself look like the hero of the story. He started doing loud dad things. Posting photos with Harper at the park. Buying her a new scooter. Signing up to volunteer at school. I didn't stop him. I wanted Harper to have a present father, but I also documented everything because I had learned how quickly narratives get written when you're not holding the pen. Miles also sent a message that made my attorney laugh without humor. Email subject. Proposal for fresh start. He wrote that we should start over, no lawyers, no paperwork, just trust. Trust. The word almost made me choke. I forwarded it to my attorney and added it to timeline. Then came the real twist, the one that gave me the clean closure I didn't think I'd get. Alyssa reached out to me. Not through Miles. Directly. It was an Instagram message request from an account with her full name. I stared at it for a full minute before opening it. Her message was short. DM, 8:41 p.m. Hi Kendra. I'm sorry. I didn't know he was still living as a married man. He told me you were separated. Separated. I felt my whole body go cold. Because this wasn't just an affair. It was misrepresentation. To both of us. And now I had something that mattered, not emotionally, but legally. I sent the DM screenshot to my attorney. My attorney replied with one sentence. Do not respond, this is useful. Miles called me that night, voice sharp. How did Alyssa message you? He demanded. I kept my voice steady. You need to stop worrying about my phone, I said, and start worrying about your lies. Miles's voice changed. Softa. Begging. Kendra, he said, don't use her against me. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was unbelievable. He had used me against me for months. Now he was afraid of paperwork. I said, I'm not using anyone. I'm just not hiding anymore. We went into mediation. Not dramatic. Just fluorescent lights, neutral voices, and adults trying to pretend they're not breaking a family apart. Miles tried, one last time, to bring up the kiss. He framed it like a moral tie. Like it meant we were even. He said, she kissed her best friend. How do we know what kind of environment that is? The mediator looked unimpressed. My attorney responded calmly. She kissed a friend during a crisis, she said. She disclosed it. She set boundaries. She has stable housing. She has primary routines. She has documented communication. That is the environment. Then my attorney slid the DM screenshot across the table. The separated claim. Miles's face went pale. Because suddenly the story wasn't about my messy moment. It was about his pattern. The mediator asked, Miles, did you tell Alyssa you were separated? Miles tried to talk his way out. But there's something about a direct question from a neutral person that makes lies feel heavier. He finally said, I didn't want it to get complicated. And the mediator said flatly, "It is complicated. You made it complicated." We got a fair agreement. No theatrics. No revenge. Just structure. Harper's schedule protected. Expenses outlined. Communication limited to a parenting app. It wasn't the happy ending I imagined when I married Miles, but it was the stable ending Harper deserved. Now, about Danny, because I know that's what people will wonder. After the kiss, Danny and I had a hard conversation. Not romantic. Not dramatic. Honest. I told her, "I don't want to turn you into my rebound or my revenge." Danny nodded and said, "Good, because I don't want to be either." We stayed friends. We gave each other space for a while. Then we rebuilt the friendship with boundaries that made it safer. No late-night venting with wine. No blurred lines. Just support. And that's when I realized what that kiss actually was. It wasn't love. It was a flare shot into the sky. A signal that I was desperate for steadiness. A signal that my marriage had become a place where I couldn't breathe. Final update. It's been a year. Harper is okay. Not because Miles and I became best friends, but because we became consistent. She knows what days are mom days and what days are dad days. She knows nobody is asking her to pick sides. She knows adults handle adult problems. And I keep timeline on my phone. I don't add to it anymore, but I keep it to remind myself of something simple. If someone betrays you, don't let the chaos make you abandon your values. Own your mistakes. Set your boundaries. Protect your kids' peace. And let the receipts, not your panic, do the talking. If you take anything from my story, let it be this: betrayal isn't just what they did, it's what they expected you to tolerate quietly. And if you're in the middle of something messy, protect your peace like it's a person you're responsible for, because in a way, it is.